My name is Claire Thompson. I'm 38 years old, and the morning my entire life was supposed to end, my husband smiled across his mahogany desk and destroyed me. Congratulations, Ethan said smoothly, sliding the termination letter across the wood like it was a gift. You're terminated, effective immediately. Take your old laptop and get out. Nixora belongs to me now, and Vanessa will take your place. Vanessa Carter. Her manicured hand rested possessively on his shoulder, the diamond bracelet I'd once picked out for myself glittering in the sunlight. Ethan's wedding ring flashed as he leaned back satisfied, as though 8 years of my work were disposable. He didn't stop there. The divorce papers arrive tomorrow, he added, his tone casual cruel. Security will escort you out. 2 guards appeared in the doorway waiting. My chest should have collapsed, but instead I smiled. Because in exactly 10 minutes, the hidden code I'd buried deep inside Nixora's systems would awaken, and everything Ethan thought was his would begin to fall apart. I walked out without a word. You won't believe what led to that moment, because before betrayal, before the lies, before Nixora became a battlefield, there was love. Real love, or at least what I thought was real. 3 years earlier, Ethan and I were sitting cross-legged on the floor of a tiny Portland apartment. The carpet was worn thin, the walls were stained with rainwater leaks, and the hum of our second-hand refrigerator was louder than our ambitions had any right to be. Yet in that cramped space, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and half-drunk cups of coffee, we dreamed a company into existence. Ethan paced the living room, tossing ideas into the air like sparks, and I, laptop balanced on my knees, glasses slipping down my nose, caught those sparks and turned them into code. He spoke about predicting cyber breaches before they happened. My fingers flew across the keyboard, mapping the impossible. When I finally looked up and said, "Give me 3 months, I can build it," his whole face lit up. He kissed me then, right there among the clutter. This is why I love you, Claire. You make the impossible possible. In those early days, we survived on corner store sandwiches and stubborn hope. 18-hour days blurred together, Ethan juggling meetings with skeptical investors while I lived inside the terminal window, writing the foundation of what would become Nexora's predictive security platform. We were young, hungry, reckless, and convinced the world couldn't ignore us forever. Our wedding reflected those beginnings. A Tuesday afternoon at the courthouse, me in a simple dress I'd ordered online for $180, Ethan in a suit one size too big. We promised 50-50 in business, in marriage, in life. That vow meant more to me than the paper we signed. We were partners. Or so I believed. And for a while it felt true. Within 18 months, our idea leapt from scraps of grocery receipts to a functioning office, exposed brick concrete floors, a handful of desks filled with young developers who looked at me like I was building magic. The platform worked. Clients signed. Contracts grew. Ethan smiled at me like we'd cracked the universe open with our bare hands. But somewhere between those early mornings and late nights, something shifted. It was subtle at first. During team meetings, Ethan started interrupting me mid-sentence. What Claire means is he'd say then explain my own work in simplified bullet points like I was his assistant instead of his partner. He'd laugh afterward when I bristled. "Honey, you just get so technical. I'm helping you connect with people." Client presentations followed the same pattern. I'd spend days preparing demos of our new predictive models, and when the meeting came, Ethan would take the stage while I sat beside him smiling, silent and visible. "Claire's our technical genius," he'd say, voice dripping with pride that wasn't real. "She makes the magic happen behind the scenes." Behind the scenes. That was where he wanted me. I ignored the sting because I believed in us. In Nixora. In the dream we'd built on borrowed coffee and rain-leaking ceilings. When our first $1 million contract came through, I didn't care that Ethan gave the acceptance speech alone. I just clutched his hand and whispered, "We did it." But the cracks widened. I remember one night in particular. It was nearly 2 a.m. The office lights hummed above me while I debugged a stubborn algorithm. Ethan came in late, smelling of whiskey and cigars, cheeks flushed from entertaining investors. He leaned on my chair, eyes glossy. "You're incredible, Claire. I don't know how you do it." I looked at him, my partner, my husband, and realized he hadn't opened a line of code in months. He didn't even understand half the breakthroughs I'd made. The balance had tipped, and I was carrying all the weight. Still, I convinced myself it was fine. That was marriage, wasn't it? You cover each other's weaknesses. I built the backbone. He sold the dream. We were still a team. The next morning, he stood in front of our developers, gesturing toward slides he hadn't made. "We're revolutionizing predictive security," he declared. The team clapped. I stood at the back unnoticed. My code was the reason they all had jobs, but Ethan's voice was the one they followed. That should have been my warning. The truth is, I ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in us. In the Ethan who once kissed me on a carpet floor and whispered that my dreams were his. But the Ethan I was married to now. He had stopped seeing me as a partner. I was becoming just another tool, useful until replaced. And replacement was already waiting in the wings. Her name was Vanessa, and on the day she walked into our office, I thought she was salvation. We needed someone to tame the chaos, someone to make sense of the contracts scattered in filing cabinets, the missed birthdays, the supply closet that looked like a war zone. Vanessa arrived with polished resumes, a University of Washington MBA, and glowing references from Microsoft. She carried herself like she already belonged in any room she entered, all sharp lines and soft smiles. "She's perfect," I told Ethan after her interview. "Exactly what we need." He hired her the next morning. At first, Vanessa was everything I hoped for. She brought cookies to team meetings, remembered birthdays, reorganized the filing system, and turned chaos into order. For the first time in years, I thought I had found an ally, another woman in a world that had begun to feel like Ethan's stage. But within weeks, something in the air shifted. Late nights started to multiply. At first, it was understandable. Vanessa and Ethan working together on revenue projections, on sales restructuring, on strategic planning. "Go home," Claire Ethan would say with that casual smile. "Vanessa and I need to finish this. Don't wait up." So I went home alone to an empty house we had only recently bought, the kind of suburban dream we once couldn't imagine affording. I would reheat leftovers, curl up on the couch, and wait for the sound of the garage door at 2 or 3 a.m. Ethan slipping into bed, smelling faintly of perfume. "You're imagining things," he told me when I finally asked about it. "Vanessa wears the same perfume as half the women in Portland." "You're being paranoid." Was I? I doubted myself more than I want to admit. I told myself I was exhausted, overworked, maybe too suspicious. But deep down in the place where truth lives, even when you won't face it, I knew. The truth showed its teeth on a Thursday afternoon. I had picked up Ethan's favorite Thai takeout balancing bags of food in one hand while swiping into the building with the other. His office door was cracked empty of him, but not of secrets. Vanessa's silver laptop sat open on his desk screen, bright. I should have ignored it. I should have set the food down and walked away. But the preview of the top email froze me. "Can't wait for the cabin this weekend. Perfect for what we discussed." The sender was Ethan. My stomach turned cold. My finger hovered above the trackpad before I scrolled. The next email preview. "Once Claire is out, we can restructure everything." The smell of curry and chili oil turned to nausea. I sat down in Ethan's chair and opened the thread. Email after email stretching back 4 months. Not just an affair, a conspiracy. Vanessa documenting me as unstable. Ethan promising the board he could manage me out. Notes about every time I questioned him labeled as aggressive behavior. Every time I worked from home, marked as absence without communication. It was all there. My husband and the woman I thought was my ally plotting to strip me of the company I had built with my own hands. I snapped photos of every email, 23 in total. The sharp click of my phone's camera was the only sound in the room. My hands stayed steady even as my heart threatened to detonate. Footsteps echoed down the hall. I closed the laptop, placed the food neatly on the desk, and was peeling open a container when Ethan walked in with 2 executives. "Honey," he said brightly, kissing my cheek like a man playing the role of devoted husband. "What a nice surprise." I smiled and played along. "Pad Thai, extra spicy." "Just like you like it." His colleagues chuckled, exchanging polite hellos. I excused myself, muttering something about debugging protocols. I walked out steady, but in the parking garage, I vomited beside my car, the taste of betrayal acrid on my tongue. That night, I lay beside Ethan as he scrolled his phone in bed. Was he texting Vanessa planning their cabin getaway? His face glowed in the blue light, so familiar and so foreign all at once. "Everything okay?" he asked without looking up. "Just tired," I whispered. "The new protocol's complex. Maybe take a break," he suggested smoothly. "You've been pushing too hard." There it was, the narrative of my instability laid brick by brick, ready for him to present to the board. I turned away, eyes open in the dark, and realized the man beside me was a stranger. The next weeks bled together like a slow-motion execution. Ethan began presenting my technical breakthroughs as collaborative team efforts. Vanessa, always in perfect posture, backed him with documentation. Even Richard Hale, our sharpest investor, began looking at me with caution, as though afraid I might snap at any moment. And the whispers reached the office. Conversations stopped when I entered a room. Lunch invitations dried up. The people I had once led now looked at me like a problem to be managed. I overheard two junior developers in the supply closet one afternoon. "Is it true she had a breakdown in the garage?" "That's what Vanessa said." "Poor Ethan. He's been so patient." My throat burned. I wanted to scream to tell them the truth, but I stayed hidden among the toner cartridges, silent. By December, the holiday party became unbearable theater. Ethan toasted the brilliant heart of our technical team, but used past tense. Vanessa hovered nearby, her smile polite, her hand brushing his sleeve when no one else was looking. And then came the call I wasn't supposed to hear. I logged into a board meeting line early and caught Ethan and Vanessa thinking they were alone. After the new year, Ethan said, "We'll handle both at once. Termination and divorce. Clean break." "Rip the bandage off," Vanessa replied. "By February, you'll be CEO in name as well as in practice." I muted my microphone and wrote everything down. That night, staring at the ceiling while Ethan slept peacefully beside me, I knew the truth I had avoided too long. My marriage was over. My company was gone. My life as I knew it was already dead. But if they thought I would go quietly, they had underestimated me. The night I overheard Ethan and Vanessa planning my removal, something inside me finally went quiet. Not rage, not grief. Just silence, cold, focused, razor sharp. If they wanted me gone, fine, but I would not leave empty-handed. The very next morning, while Ethan was at the gym, I powered up my laptop and began what I privately called the insurance protocol. First came the documentation, every contribution I'd ever made, every algorithm, every architecture diagram, every patent draft was collected, time-stamped, encrypted, and backed up to 3 different cloud accounts under names Ethan didn't know. I created folders labeled innocuously enough to pass unnoticed recipes, vacation photos, but inside were terabytes of proof that Nexora was built on my mind, my hands, my sleepless nights. Then came the evidence of their betrayal. I bought a tiny voice recorder from a hole-in-the-wall shop downtown, cash only. The clerk raised an eyebrow as I tested its mic in my palm, but said nothing. That device became my constant companion. I slipped it into meetings where Ethan presented my breakthroughs as team projects where Vanessa's careful notes painted me as unstable. I recorded every dismissive laugh, every patronizing correction, every false smile. And then I turned to the code. For months, I had been refining Nexora's predictive threat detection platform, the most advanced of its kind. I knew its pulse the way a doctor knows a patient's heartbeat. So I began to stitch into it vulnerabilities, tiny, elegant weaknesses invisible to anyone but me. A door half closed a lock that looked sturdy but could be picked by someone who knew where to press. It wasn't sabotage, not yet. Think of it as loosening the bolts on a bridge by half a turn. To the casual eye, the bridge still stands, but I knew with enough pressure it would buckle exactly where I told it to. At night, while Ethan snored beside me, I typed line after line with steady fingers, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with purpose. Each keystroke was both a weapon and a shield. "You're working too much," Ethan remarked one morning, catching me asleep at my desk. Maybe we should talk about reducing your responsibilities. I smiled faintly, hiding the surge of dark satisfaction. Yes, I thought. Reduce me. Erase me. Watch what happens. To ground myself, I sought help in secret. A therapist, Dr. Patricia Reeves, whose office sat 2 towns away so no one in our circle would know. I paid in cash, used a fake last name, and for the first time said the words out loud, "I think my husband and his colleague are trying to erase me." Patricia didn't flinch. "That's called gaslighting," she said after listening carefully. "Textbook emotional manipulation. They're undermining you to make you doubt your own reality." "But what if I'm paranoid?" I whispered. She leaned forward, her glasses sliding down her nose. "Paranoid people don't collect photographic evidence." "You're not paranoid. You're preparing." Her words steadied me. As December blurred into January, my double life became second nature. By day, I played the dutiful CTO silent cooperative, supposedly recalibrating. By night, I built my Fortress encrypted backups, hidden access points code that could be traced to me and only me. I even created a digital watermark buried deep in Nexora's framework that would prove authorship beyond question in any court. Meanwhile, Ethan and Vanessa tightened their narrative. At meetings, Vanessa would clarify my technical terms with a patient smile. "What Claire means is a small improvement, nothing revolutionary." My breakthroughs shrank under her pen, my reputation withered by design. Even my closest allies drifted. Sarah, once my confidant, stopped joining our Tuesday lunches. "Sorry, swamped," she muttered, avoiding my eyes. Marcus, our database architect, now copied Vanessa on every email as if I couldn't be trusted to lead my own team. The isolation was brutal. Walking into the break room, I could feel conversations die mid-sentence. Laughter evaporated. Smiles became polite, brittle masks. I was no longer the visionary who had coded their paychecks into existence. I was the situation whispered about in hallways. But instead of breaking me, it fueled me. Every cold shoulder, every staged whisper, every stolen idea hardened my resolve. They thought they were dismantling me. In truth, they were giving me time to sharpen my weapons. The final straw came at the holiday party. Ethan raised his glass, Vanessa glowing at his side, and said Claire has been the heart of our technical team. Has been. Past tense. The words landed like a coffin lid closing. Around me, people clapped politely. Inside, I made a promise. "By the next holiday, you'll regret ever underestimating me." 2 weeks later, I joined a board call early and overheard them. Ethan's voice smug. "We'll do it in January. Termination and divorce same day." "Rip off the bandage." Vanessa's reply. "Perfect. By February, you'll be CEO in both title and practice." I muted my mic, wrote every word into my encrypted journal, and smiled. Because what they didn't know, what they could never imagine, was that by the time security escorted me out, their empire would already be collapsing. The insurance protocol was ready. The vulnerabilities lay dormant, silent as landmines. My documentation was airtight, my evidence damning. They were so focused on painting me as unstable, they never considered the possibility that I was quietly, patiently building the very noose they would hang themselves with. And I wasn't planning to pull it right away. No, I would let them finish their theater. Let Ethan play the magnanimous CEO. Let Vanessa preen as his shadow queen. Let them serve the papers and escort me out like some disgraced employee. Because only then, when they were at their most triumphant, would the clock start ticking. 10 minutes. That's all it would take. The first week of January felt like waiting for an execution date. Every morning I woke up beside Ethan. Every evening I sat across from him at dinner, knowing he was counting down the days until he erased me. He didn't realize I was counting down too, but not to my end. To his. The call came at 9:00 a.m., sharp. Ethan's assistant voice strained Claire. "Mr. Thompson needs to see you in his office right away." My pulse didn't quicken, my hands didn't shake, because I already knew. I smoothed my charcoal gray suit jacket, the same one I'd worn for our first investor pitch, and walked through Nexora's halls with my head high. Developers glanced up from their screens, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Did they know? Probably. Vanessa's whispers had been working overtime. Ethan's office door stood open. He sat behind our mahogany desk, Vanessa poised beside him like a queen in red. A third man lurked in the corner, Gary from HR clutching a folder. Claire, Ethan said, voice smooth and rehearsed. "Please sit." "I'll stand," I replied. He blinked once, irritated, then slid a packet across the desk. "Effective immediately, your employment with Nexora is terminated. Performance issues, failure to collaborate, creation of a hostile work environment. The board is aligned on this." His wedding ring caught the sunlight as he spoke, as if mocking the vows he was about to shred. Vanessa's hand rested casually on his shoulder. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence said it all. I tilted my head. "And the grounds for this decision?" "Confidential complaints," Vanessa chimed in. "Documented extensively." "Confidential," I echoed, eyes locked on hers. "How long, Vanessa?" "Since the first late-night strategy session or since the first weekend getaway," Gary coughed. Ethan's face flushed. "That's exactly the kind of baseless accusation that proves this was necessary," he snapped. "You're paranoid, Claire. You've lost perspective." I almost laughed. If only he knew how clear my perspective had become. He pushed another envelope toward me. "One more thing personal. Divorce papers will arrive tomorrow morning." His smile sharpened. It seemed cleaner to handle both matters at once. The room tilted for a heartbeat, but I stayed steady. "Efficient," I said flatly. Gary finally spoke. "Security will escort you to collect your belongings." And there it was, the humiliation they'd been building toward, the final act of theater. March, the co-founder, through her own company like a criminal. I gathered the packet, lifted the old laptop Ethan had oh so generously allowed me to keep. "That's generous," I said. He smirked, thinking he'd won. But when I turned to leave, I caught his eye one last time. "You're right, Ethan. I never learned how to play the game. I was too busy building the kingdom you're about to lose." His smile faltered. Vanessa's fingers dug tighter into his shoulder. Two security guards waited in the hall. Tony and Marcus men I'd greeted every morning for years. Their faces were stiff with professionalism, but I saw regret in their eyes. "Morning, guys," I said lightly. "Shall we?" The walk through the office was surreal. Conversations stopped. Screens flickered as people pretended to work. A few stared openly, confusion and discomfort on their faces. Sarah half rose from her desk, but I shook my head. "Sit. Don't risk yourself." In my office, I was given 10 minutes to pack. I chose carefully the coffee mug from our first product launch, a photo of the original team, a stress ball shaped like a bug. I left the awards, the certificates, the framed first dollar. They weren't mine anymore. They were artifacts of a lie. The guards escorted me out. The lobby receptionist couldn't meet my eyes. The glass doors we'd once chosen for their symbolism of transparency now reflected my face, calm, unreadable as I stepped into the gray Portland morning. And then my phone buzzed. A simple notification system, maintenance 10 minutes. The countdown had begun. I sat in my car, across the street, laptop bag on the passenger seat. 9:08. 2 minutes. At 9:10, the first alert pinged my phone. Firewall rules modified. Authentication delays triggered. Nothing catastrophic, just the first loose bolts in the bridge. Through Nexora's glass lobby, I saw movement, people hurrying, phones pressed to their ears. 9:12. Database latency increased 400%. Developers ran toward the elevators. Gary stumbled through the lobby folder, forgotten. Vanessa appeared beside Ethan, both of them gesturing wildly at screens. Their composure was cracking. 9:14. External probes detected Moscow, Beijing, Sao Paulo. Hackers smelled blood in the water. The lobby dissolved into chaos. Security guards ran outside, scanning the street as if the attack might be hiding in plain sight. Their eyes skimmed over me, just another woman sitting in her car, rain streaking the windshield. 9:16. Client portal offline. Phones lit up like a Christmas tree. I could see Ethan pacing, dragging his hands through his hair, the same tell I'd watched during our startup days. Except this time, I wasn't stepping in to fix things. By 9:18, a local news van pulled up, camera crew spilling out. Someone inside had tipped them off. Cybersecurity firm hacked in real time. The headline was too delicious to resist. Inside the building, Ethan's mask cracked completely. His arms flailed, his mouth twisted in a snarl. Vanessa's red dress was no longer power, it was a target. Employees darted between floors like ants from a kicked nest. And me, I sat back, sipped lukewarm coffee from my old travel mug and let the rain wash my windshield clean. 9:20. Admin credentials harvested. The Russians were inside. The company that had promised to predict and prevent cyber attacks was bleeding out in broad daylight. I laughed. A sound sharp and startling in the silence of my car. Not cruel, just free. Because Ethan thought he'd humiliated me. He thought he'd taken everything, but in truth, he'd only set the stage. And now, in front of employees, investors, clients, and cameras, he was learning the most expensive lesson of his life. Never betray the woman who built the system. By 9:23, my voicemail was a siren. Investors, clients. A local reporter who'd somehow learned my name before the ink on my termination packet dried. I let them all roll to silence and watched the building across the street try to remember how to breathe without me. The first voice I answered wasn't Ethan's. It was Richard Hale. Calm, expensive voice turned raw. "Claire, what in God's name is happening? Our dashboards show Nexora falling over. You were terminated minutes before this started. Can you fix it? I don't work there anymore," I said, watching Vanessa stride across the lobby like a general losing the war in real time. "Even if I wanted to help, I have no access. We'll pay you, whatever number you." He stopped thinking as fast as he could. "No, that's wrong. You shouldn't have to clean up a mess made by people who erased you. I'm sorry I believed them." His voice cracked on the apology, and for a second I heard the echo of every boardroom nod that had agreed I was unstable. He exhaled. "If you hang your own shingle, call me first." Call ended. Another rang. "The CEO at Pacific Financial. We're invoking termination. Effective immediately." A beat softer. "If you start a firm, we'll be your first signed client." My hands were steady. The rain had softened to Mist City washed clean, as if the day itself was merciful. Then Ethan's name flooded the screen again and again until I answered, if only to end the pounding. "Come back," he said. No preamble, the CEO polish stripped bare. "Claire, please. I don't care about the terms. Just come back." "You made sure I couldn't," I said. "Security escorted me out. Remember, I'll restore full admin privileges. We'll make you CTO again. This is bigger than us." "Is it? Or is it finally exactly our size?" A rustle and Vanessa's voice slid onto the line, cool, practiced. "Whatever you're doing is hurting innocent people." Innocent people marched me past their desks like caution tape, I said. "Tell me again about innocence." Claire Ethan again breaking. "The FBI, do we call them? Is that what we—" "You haven't called federal authorities in the middle of a live multi-vector breach." I let the question hang. Interesting choice for a security company. Silence then, a sound like a man realizing the floor beneath him is an elevator shaft. I ended the call, turned the phone face down. Let the city swallow their voices. By noon, Nexora's lobby looked like a failed evacuation drill. The news crawls were merciless. The think pieces arrived before lunch. The stock graph learned what freefall meant. An hour later, the Bureau issued a statement advising clients to seek interim security alternatives. It wasn't a bullet. It was an epitaph. I drove home under a sky the color of wet slate and brewed tea in the quiet kitchen Ethan and I had once painted together, laughing at how badly we were at edging. Young broke invincible. I carried the cup to my desk and opened my private machine. The feeds rolled like tide. The vulnerabilities I had left half-latched were visible to anyone who knew how to look. The fixes were likewise obvious if you understood the heartbeat of the platform, which meant in practice no one there. By evening, Vanessa's corporate email was deactivated. Someone leaked the screenshot, and Richard's fund released a statement heavy with phrases like leadership failure and operational negligence. The internet pounced. The comment sections became a Greek chorus. You don't fire the architect and expect the house to stand. Days blurred. An attorney notarized the envelope that finalized a life. I signed the divorce papers with a pen that had once signed our articles of incorporation. The symmetry felt like a sick joke that only the universe appreciated. The house was mine. The silence, too. Then came the unexpected quiet of work that isn't a job yet and still fills every hour. 2 emails turned into 5 contracts. Quiet NDAs, big names, audit our systems, pressure test our defenses. I didn't call it a company, I called it a calendar. But it was a company mine. The invoices wore a simple header Thompson Security Research. It would get a better name later. For now, it paid for the lawyer, the mortgage, the life. Weeks slid by like rain down a window. Vanessa resigned to pursue other opportunities. Translation there were none. Ethan stopped appearing on camera and started appearing in unflattering candids outside courthouse steps. Rumor said he'd stepped down voluntarily. Rumor also said voluntary was doing a lot of work. 3 months after the day the glass doors closed behind me, someone knocked on the terracotta-painted door I'd chosen after Ethan moved out. Not the doorbell. A knock, hesitant human. I looked through the peephole and felt that old elevator drop. He looked smaller somehow, like the suit he once wore had been taken back by the person he borrowed it from. "Claire," he said when I opened the door. "I'm not here to fight. You're not here to win, either," I said. "So, what are you here for?" "To beg." The word trembled in the air between us. I didn't invite him in. I let him stand on the threshold and say the rest. He did eyes flicking to the hallway where our wedding photo used to hang and now didn't. Nexora is 2 pay cycles from empty. The only asset worth anything is your platform. Investors will only talk if you're in control of it. I'm offering you 48%. Board seat, total technical authority. In writing. You're offering me my own lungs, I said. Nice of you. His jaw worked. I know what I did. I know what I am. But this? He held out a folder, hands unsteady. This recognizes what's always been true. You were the architect. You are the product. I took the folder. Inside signatures that weren't mine, yet clauses that were almost apologies. No Vanessa in perpetuity. Attribution language naming Claire Thompson as the primary inventor of the core technology. Veto on any sale or transfer of the platform. Retroactive compensation. Benefits backdated to the day I'd been marched past my own team. You forgot one thing I said. What if I ever sense you undermining me again publicly, privately, in a whisper I walk? And this time I don't just leave. I take the oxygen with me legally. I tapped the attribution clause. I know exactly which levers to pull. He swallowed. Understood. For a long moment we stood in the quiet, the house listening like a witness. Out on the street, a neighbor's wind chimes found a thin, silver melody. "This doesn't fix it," he said softly. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," I said. "Because you're not getting it." He nodded once, an acceptance so small it felt like honesty. "Then what do you need?" "Control," I said. "Truth. And an apology I don't have to carry." His eyes shone. For the first time since the cheap suits and courthouse vows, I saw the boy who'd paced the floor while I wrote code on my knees. It didn't move me. It only reminded me that the past is a place you cannot live without starving. "Send it to my attorney," I said, handing him back the folder. "If she signs off, I'll consider it." He lingered, a man trying to memorize a home he no longer owned. Then he stepped backward, off the threshold, out of the frame. "Thank you." He said the words ragged. I closed the door gently, leaned my forehead against the wood, breathed. On my desk, my laptop pulsed a small notification. New message from Sarah Kim. "If you come back, I'll meet you at the door with the team. We'll build it right this time. On your terms." I looked at my reflection in the black screen, older by months, that felt like years, steadier by truths that finally had names. I thought of the glass doors, the guard who wouldn't meet my eyes, the 10 minutes that had rewritten the ending of our story. Maybe this was the echo I'd been waiting for. Not Ethan's apology, not the headlines, but the chance to decide how the next chapter begins. I opened a new document, typed a single line. "If I return, it's not to save Ethan, it's to save the thing I made." I hit save. Then I reached for my phone and called my attorney. "Send him my terms," I said. "All of them." Ready to sign, she asked, Ready to be heard, I said. And somewhere far across town, in an office that still smelled like panic and stale coffee, a printer began spitting out a contract that would put my name where it always belonged. "You're terminated," Ethan had said. I stood up and walked out. Now I was deciding whether to walk back in on my feet on my terms, with the door held open by the truth. The next Monday, I walked through Nexora's glass doors again, not as an escorted-out liability, not as Ethan's silent partner, but as the architect returning to her creation. The office felt hollow, half the desk's abandoned monitors dark, the air tinged with stale panic. Yet the 12 who remained straightened when I entered, as if someone had just remembered the lights could still turn on. Sarah met me at the threshold. "Welcome home," she said simply. Behind her, others nodded. Not pitying, not hesitant, relieved. Ethan wasn't in sight. He'd tucked himself into the small conference room, a man trying to shrink inside a glass box. For the first time, he knew better than to perform. I didn't waste time. We moved to the server room, where the hum of machines felt like old friends greeting me. I slipped into the terminal, fingers flying. Closing the vulnerabilities I had once sewn in like tiny stitches, reversing each quiet sabotage with precision only I could manage. For 72 hours, I barely slept. The team followed my lead, hungry to believe in something real again. Vanessa's absence was a hole, yes, but a hole where poison had once pooled. With her gone, air flowed. By Wednesday, the monitoring dashboard was green across the board. The platform was no longer limping. It was alive again, stronger than it had ever been. I had turned the vulnerabilities into defenses, scars into armor. When the final error cleared, a cheer broke out in the room. Spontaneous, genuine. The first true cheer I'd heard in months. Ethan appeared in the doorway. His face carried a mix of awe and shame. "They're all green," he whispered. "They'll stay that way," I said without looking at him. "Claire." He faltered, searching for words. "You saved us." I turned, then met his eyes. "No. I saved what I built. Don't confuse the two." The rebound came faster than anyone predicted. By the end of the week, Pacific Financial returned. Then 2 more clients. By month's end, Nexora was back at 40% capacity and climbing. But the credit wasn't Ethan's this time. Every article, every headline, every whisper named me the woman who had been fired minutes before the breach, only to return and resurrect the company she created. The industry called it the Claire effect. At the first board meeting under the new arrangement, I took my seat opposite Ethan. Not beside him, opposite. Richard Hale entered, eyebrows lifting when he saw me there. "So it's true," he muttered. "It's true," I said. "Technical authority is mine. No decisions without my signature." No one argued. They knew who held the keys now. When Ethan began to speak, "What Claire means," I cut across him clean and sharp. "I mean exactly what I said. I don't need translation." The boardroom went silent. For the first time, Ethan leaned back, silenced not by embarrassment, but recognition. The power had shifted. Permanently. Outside the boardroom, the whispers changed. Employees who once avoided me now sought me out. Sarah brought me coffee before morning stand-ups. Marcus stopped by my desk to bounce ideas like he used to. Even the junior developers, the ones who had once gossiped about my breakdown, apologized in quiet, clumsy ways. A post-it note with thanks for saving our jobs stuck to my monitor, a shy sorry for believing things muttered in the hallway. The isolation was gone. In its place, something closer to respect. But perhaps the strangest change was Ethan himself. Late one evening, long after the office had emptied, he stood in the doorway of the server room. I didn't look up from the code. "You did it," he said softly. "You turned the ship around. Valuation's already at 12 million. Your 52% must taste sweet," I replied, my voice flat. He shook his head. "Money doesn't matter. Not anymore. You were the soul of this Claire. I tried to cut it out. And without you, everything died." I finally met his eyes. They were tired, sunken, nothing like the man who once paced our apartment floor with fire in his voice. "You destroyed our marriage," I said. "You destroyed me." "I know," he whispered. If I could take it back, but you can't." The silence after that was heavier than any scream. Finally, he nodded. "You'll always be the most brilliant person I've ever known." I turned back to my screen. Brilliance doesn't forgive betrayal. He left without another word. 6 months later, Nexora hosted a celebration not at a hotel ballroom, not with champagne and empty speeches, but in the office itself. Pizza boxes stacked high, laughter echoing off exposed brick. 50 employees again rebuilt from the ashes. I stood at the front, alone, not beside Ethan. Next time someone tells you a company is unbreakable, I said, voice steady, "Remember what happened here. Nexora fell because we forgot what mattered. Not appearances, not politics, not boardroom games. What matters is building something that works, something that protects something worth trusting. That's what we'll be known for again." Applause thundered. Real, not polite. I saw Sarah wiping at her eyes. Marcus grinning like the man I first hired. Even Richard, ever the stoic investor, clapped hard enough to turn his palms red. Ethan clapped too. Not for himself, for me. Maybe for the first time, honestly. Later that night, I stood on the roof of the building, Portland's skyline, stretching out beneath a sky bruised with twilight. I thought of the cheap apartment with rain leaking through the ceiling, the pizza boxes and late-night promises, the vows whispered at a courthouse. I thought of betrayal, humiliation, the walk through the office as if I were already a ghost. And then I thought of this moment alive, stronger, standing atop the empire I had built, my name finally engraved in its foundations. I closed my eyes, letting the wind sting my face. For the first time in years, the silence inside me wasn't cold. It was peace. Because here's the truth, Ethan didn't destroy me. Vanessa didn't replace me. The board didn't erase me. They underestimated me. And underestimation is the most dangerous weapon in the world because it gives you time. Time to prepare, to sharpen, to build. They fired me. They escorted me out. They told me the company was no longer mine. But I knew better, because Nexora was always my code, my vision, my fight. And now, the world knew it too. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, pushed out of something you built, remember this story. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to realize what power you've had all along. What about you? Have you ever had someone try to erase your place in the story? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next chapter is always waiting to be written.